So again, I reiterate, pasta, no good for any of us. Now we're going to move on to this. What are macros? We've mentioned this before. Fats, proteins, and carbohydrates are the primary types of macros. Now there are subcategories. Fats. Now this isn't a full lesson on the whole thing. This is just to put some of the basics into your mindset. So under fats, we have saturated fats. That's the most important type of fat actually to consume on the ketogenic diet, but we want it to come from good, clean sources. Mostly from things like organic butter and ghee. We definitely want to consume organic products when it comes to meat and dairy. Now, the only type of dairy, now we want to really limit dairy. Dairy is such a big question now. Dairy and cheese is such an enjoyable thing for people. But believe it or not, high amounts of dairy are bad for you. So we limit dairy. But the one thing we're not limiting is organic grass-fed butter and organic ghee, which is spelled G-H-E-E. Ghee is actually a type of refined butter where it's got all the things that don't belong in it that are found in milk, and the only thing that's in the ghee is just the pure, easily digestible fat. So as a matter of fact, I've done the recent switch to, instead of just putting butter in my keto coffee, which we're going to get to, that I put ghee and butter both, kind of mixing them, because I have a little bit of butter for the flavor and then ghee to get the healthy and rapidly digesting fats. So right now, all I've had today was a keto coffee. It did have bone broth protein powder in it, about 10 milligrams. I just, I kept that, 10 grams, I'm sorry, kept that amount small. And a lot of butter. And also MCT oil. MCT oil, so this gives me energy. Now, if I ate something that was carbohydrate based, like a piece of bread or something, I'd have a stomach ache, I'd be drowsy. I noticed that for years and years, both soy and wheat products were making me feel sick. And I just never realized it because it's the narrative that soy and wheat, oh, they're good for you. I have news for you, they're not good for you. And as a matter of fact, in the Asian cultures, the reason why soy was good for them is because they were eating organic fermented soy. So that was healthier. And because it was fermented, the carbs had been eaten mostly by the friendly bacteria that's found in fermented foods. But we're going to move on to more of this. Saturated, now polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats. Those are often found in different types of vegetable oils. Now there are certain oils that you want to avoid. You definitely want to avoid what they call vegetable oil in general. When I refer to vegetable oil, I'm referring to things like extra virgin olive oil. That comes from one source. You don't want it from multiple sources because usually that's a garbage oil. You want to have coconut oil, which is really great for the keto diet, and coconut oil can do a wonderful job of activating your metabolism because of the MCT oils that are found in the medium chain triglycerides, and it has a lot of health benefits. Also, we have avocado oil, which is really terrific in conjunction with even eating avocados. So, we're taking a look at something very important, something called trans fats. Yes, it's true. Trans fats are very bad for you. We want to avoid them. Also, the other types of fats we want to avoid are fried foods, when possible, from restaurants or fast food joints. They use cheap vegetable oils or soybean oils that have been in these vats for a few days at a time, and they're just boiling and boiling and boiling until they've become an unhealthy form of fat where it's been so destroyed to the point where it's not even a usable fat. So we want to avoid things that are deep fried, and usually deep fried things are breaded with flour and other types of breading, and that is not good. So we stay away from that. Now, we do like to bake things in the oven using butters and oils, and that's okay because it doesn't get denatured. We also want to make sure that when we eat any forms of fat that they haven't gotten spoiled, or what they say haven't gotten rancid. Now you can order a lot of great things off of Amazon, but you don't want to order a lot of products that would have fat in them, or order these supplements to help you get more fats during the summertime, because they could be in a hot truck and over time could go rancid. So you want to order all that when the weather is cool, from fall to early spring, and approach it that way. So we're giving some tips. We got so much more to go as we go through the journey, and we're going to see my results. We're going to see the things that I do as we're on this New Year's resolution together. So we also have margarine. People have been trained to say, oh, margarine is such a great replacement for butter. It will prevent heart disease. Another lie. It was just to sell a cheap product that is in part something that's made out of plastic.
So you're telling me I can't believe it's not butter is not good for you?
I can't believe it's not butter is a horrible product. What they did was they take 2/3 margarine, which is a fake synthetic fat that your body can't even break down, and that is what started the heart disease epidemic to get worse. And they mix it with another 1/3 of a very cheap, low-quality butter that often is like a reject from from better quality butter manufacturing. They just take a lot of the reject butter and just put 1/3 of that into I can't believe it's not butter to give it that flavor. It's a scam. Stay away from that. Stay away from margarine immediately. People eat so much margarine thinking they're doing themselves a favor. They're not. It is a toxin. It is a poison. It's not a natural food substance, and your body doesn't really know what to do with it. And it did not help the heart disease epidemic. So we're going to move on to also talking about proteins. On the ketogenic diet, you want to have protein. As a matter of fact, we want to have protein with every meal. A lot of times you see people not realizing that they should always have a portion of high-quality protein with every meal, because protein does a lot of great things. It feeds and nourishes our body. Our body is largely made of protein. Our muscle tissue is protein. Our skin tissue is made of a form of protein. Everything, our body tissues are very important. And guess what? When people are on a highly protein deficient diet, what will happen is, in order for the body to survive, it will rob protein out of your muscle tissue and send it to more important parts of your body for your survival, such as your internal organs that are the most important ones to keep your body running, as well as your brain to replenish that. Now, so we want to continue to have a moderate amount of protein. A lot of problems happen when people are on extremely high protein diets, like bodybuilders and stuff like that. And I can understand why they do that, but it's a problem. Extremely high protein diets are very rough on the kidneys. And guess what? If you're eating too much protein, those excess calories coming from the protein can be converted into large amounts of blood sugar. That's why we keep our amounts of protein moderate.
So about 3 to 6 ounces, correct?
It depends upon the person, your age, your size, your gender. So we want to stick to 2,500 calories a day, perhaps, when we're starting out on the ketogenic diet. One of the things we want to do is we want to tell our body that fat is now the primary fuel source. And over time, the body will get the message and start burning more fat. So just think of it in terms of, hey, I want to tell my body that fat is now the primary fuel source. You start eating it. So guess what? It's going to start taking eventually from your own body's fat stores, because now you've done a biohack, biologically hacking into how your body thinks and reacts to things. And it's really quite fascinating, these different biohacks. One of the guys that has done a lot of research about biohacks is the guy that invented the bulletproof coffee and has the Bulletproof Company. I can't say that I agree with everything, but he's got a lot of wonderful concepts and tips as well when it comes to doing biohacks. And I'm very impressed with some of his research, as well as so many others. But like I said, we're gonna break through all that and compile it for you, person to person. So the types of proteins that we're going to go after, we don't want things that are overly processed. We mostly want to go for whole foods when it comes to proteins. You even have to watch out for cold cuts, because most cold cuts are not pure meat. Most cold cuts are highly processed, and thrown into it are fillers such as cornstarch or modified food starch, and even sugar when they cure these cold cuts. So actually you're doing yourself a disservice by eating low quality cuts of cold cuts. We want to avoid those. Don't be fooled by that. There are hidden carbs and all sorts of things that have, especially that have been processed. So we're moving on to this. So we want to eat whole food animal products. And we want to eat fatty meats. Everybody thinks, oh, you got to have lean meat, lean meat. No, actually, we don't want it to be lean at all. If you're going to get organic hamburger meat, get the one that has the highest amount of fat. Bacon, a great product. Just make sure that you can find a bacon that does not have added sugar. A lot of times it does. Sometimes uncured bacon, or just find one that didn't add sugar and has some other type of spices, or it was smoked or something like that. So also we're going to take a look at eggs. Organic eggs. Now we must eat organic eggs, because what happens is with the hens in these big factory producing eggs, they are both feeding them and injecting them with massive amounts of female hormones so they can produce more eggs. The last thing we want is to overdose on these synthetic female hormones that are going to wind up getting trapped in these food products. So that's why we have to go for the 100% organic eggs, which we always do. And also the organic eggs are going to have a high amount of something called lecithin in the yolk that actually breaks down the fat for more easy digestion, and and to make sure that it's healthier and safer for your body to consume. Now the other thing is fatty fish. The salmon is a fatty fish, and also we have sardines. Sardines that you can buy that are wild caught, and you can buy in a can that are already in olive oil. Eating those as a keto snack. If you need a keto snack, or you're not sure what your protein source should be in a meal, you can cover a lot of proteins and fats by eating a can of sardines. And you can also, often buy them in packages, which are really amazing. A lot of people don't like sardines, but if you're into that, but you can go, stick to salmon, and you can have salmon like 3 times a week if you're really looking for something. But make sure to get wild caught salmon and make sure it's very fatty, a fatty cut. Even certain types of steak, you'd only want a small piece, but you want those pieces of steak to be very fatty. So protein powders. Most protein powders are garbage, but a few are good. If you can find a organic bone broth protein powder, whether it's from chicken or beef, that doesn't have added sugar, that's a great way to get protein and other nutrients, because it's going to have collagen in it to feed your body, and it's going to have protein that's very usable and easily digestible, and it can even help your stomach to be healed of certain things like leaky gut syndrome and other irritations and problems that we have with our digestive system. Carbohydrates. A lot of people don't understand fully what carbohydrates are, but they are anything that has sugar. But people say, well, isn't sugar just, that stuff from cane sugar? Well, sugar is actually all carbohydrates are a form of sugar, but they use the term carbohydrates. Now, why does the word carbohydrate end in the word hydrate? That is because carbs hold on to water weight. Everybody thinks that salt will give you water weight. The truth is that carbs hold on to more water weight than salt, especially the simple carbohydrates found in white flour and sugar. So if you're eating white flour and sugar that's in anything, it's going to be pulling in and holding on to a lot of excess water weight. One of the great things about the ketogenic diet is it will prevent you from building up excess water weight. That's why you see a lot of diabetics who have hyperglycemia, which means there's far too much blood sugar being engorged throughout the whole body, collecting water weight, because there's too many carbohydrates that are in their body not being burned off by insulin, not being burned out. So that's why they really need to be on keto to solve this problem. Keto has been also used to medically treat seizure disorder. It was actually the first seizure disorder treatment. They used the dietary approach of a very strict ketogenic diet. The fats were good to the brain. The sugar reduced the excitement of the brain and preventing it from going into seizures. So we have simple carbohydrates, like I said, sugar, wheat, anything that is unnatural and carbohydrate based. Donuts are horrific. We all love these glazed donuts, but think about it, you're adding insult to injury with the glazed donut because it has the sugary corn syrup glaze, and then you've got just the simple white flour. And it only costs them about 5 cents to make a donut, and it costs you maybe like what, $1, $2 to buy a donut. You know, it's insane. So we have processed foods. Mostly when you have highly processed foods, meaning that they're not whole foods that are in their original state, processed foods are going to be very dangerous, and they have to be looked at. You have to read the ingredients. You definitely want to be an ingredient label reader. You'd be surprised that they put sugar and carbs in everything. Like I even mentioned in a previous video, most ketchup has massive amounts of added sugar and corn syrup, and you know, to make it more appealing, and that just totally destroys your keto. And tomatoes already have carbs in them, so you certainly don't need to add sugar to it. So,
but if you have to have a ketchup, could you use maybe like a no sugar added ketchup just to get you by for like maybe a recipe?
Yeah, keep the amount small when it comes to ketchup and use a no sugar added ketchup. But a lot of people don't like the flavor of a less processed no sugar added ketchup. It doesn't bother me. Some people use ketchup where there's a little bit of sucralose added to it. But even then, the ketchup itself is going to have some carbs, so just keep the amounts of that very, very small. Then we have complex carbohydrates. So do you remember what that is? Complex carbohydrates are carbs that burn more slowly in your body, simply because they're released more slowly into the body. So things like beans and brown rice, and you know, all these different things that are whole foods, they already are coming mixed in with fiber, and the fiber with the carbohydrate molecules attached to it is harder to break down in your stomach, and it has a slower release of the carbs. But even then, it's still too many carbs, too much blood sugar. We want something that's low in carbs and fibrous, and that's where the low-carb vegetables come in handy. So what are low-carb vegetables? We love potatoes, but are potatoes a low-carb vegetable? Wifey, is a potato a low-carb vegetable?
No.
No, it's a starch. So I'm sorry. No,
it's high in starches. It's my favorite, and it's the main thing I miss on the keto
potatoes.
diet is the potatoes.
Love potatoes, but you know what? But it's a starch. A lot, you know, basically most root vegetables are very, very starchy and don't have massive amounts of fiber. So we're really looking at the leafy greens. We're looking at things like peppers, even cucumbers. We can eat cucumbers, but you want to only have them in small amounts because cucumbers are very low in fiber. So small amounts of cucumbers are always good to put that on salad. But this way,
asparagus is good.
Asparagus is a wonderful ketogenic food because it's very, very hard to break down, and it's low in carbs and also nutritious. Broccoli, one of my favorites. You can get bags of organic broccoli, and you can do so many things with broccoli. You can make broccoli can serve as a bed or a foundation to put other things on, and you can melt lots of butter on there. And broccoli is good for your hormones. It digests very slowly, so it helps to prevent you from feeling hungry and all these kinds of things. So we also have hidden or added carbs. Like I said, read the labels. You would be shocked at how they add a lot of sugar to almost everything. It's shocking. I mean, even something like horseradish sauce. I said, oh, well, that's not a sweet thing. I'll just grab it. It turned out it had many grams of sugar in it, so I had to, sometimes you got to make your own or just keep looking for one that has no added sugar. So sometimes making your own stuff is the best way to go. But a lot of people are obsessed with sweet things. Well, we're going to suggest to limit artificial sweeteners. The one that you definitely want to eliminate completely is aspartame, because people will start dumping a lot of aspartame onto their foods. Aspartame will actually make you sick and fat and damage your nervous system. Stay away from aspartame. It is very bad for you. And also, if you're consuming something that's that sweet, your body can say, oh, I have to get ready for the amount of carbs that's going to come into me, because because your body digestion begins in the mouth. So your body senses that you're eating something that's very sweet, and you get an insulin response or a blood sugar response. You want to reduce that, especially aspartame. Instead, you want to use stevia, but again, most stevia products come with massive amounts of fillers. If you read the ingredients, sometimes the first ingredient isn't even stevia. When you get stevia powder, so there is one, but they're going to be more expensive, but it's worth it. So you get something sweet leaf stevia, no added fillers, but you would find some type of alternative sweetener mixed in with the stevia that's very inexpensive that they use as a filler. So it might be only 10% stevia, and they can market it as stevia, but it's got other ingredients in it, such as the sugar, the alcohol sugars. So we only want to use pure stevia as a sweetener, because I know a lot of you guys have the sweet tooth and need to break that sweet tooth addiction. Stevia can help with that. And that's far less troublesome and less toxic. Actually, stevia is not believed to be toxic at all. There are some people who grow stevia and make teas out of it to help fight certain diseases, including Lyme disease, when there's used as this overall compilation of different things. People put stevia in their arsenal. The best way I have seen to consume stevia is by getting the pure stevia liquid drops. That's the best way to go, because it's potent and a lot of it goes a long way. And you can use liquid drops for a lot of things. So we've got to take a look at what should we do about macros. Well, with keto, instead of just jumping right into the ideal macro range, that can be too much of a shock to your body and to your digestive system, wondering what the heck is going on. So we want to ease into it so you're not put into shock, and so your digestive system isn't going through a shocking adjustment and even causing you some discomfort. So we don't want that. So these are not written in stone, but it's an example and a suggestion to start out like this with each and every meal. So start out eating 3 meals a day. You can maintain 2,500 calories a day if you wish, but as long as you stick to the macros. So we're taking a look at starting out with, we want to get those carbs lowered immediately. So we're looking at starting out with 20% carbs. But it's not going to lower your carbs to a point where you're going to get too weak or too sick. So, but drop down to 20% carbohydrates, 40% protein, and 40% fats. So just divide up your protein and fats half and half. And this way you're not going to get too overwhelmed or get too tired from your blood sugar dropping, because we don't want it to drop too fast. We want it to be gradual. And then when you're
How long would you want to do that?
That depends. You have to do 2 things. Number one, you're going to want to feel that out. So as soon as your stomach is used to the change and your stomach starts adjusting and feeling better, that often tells you when you're ready to move on. So I would use that as one of the benchmarks. I would say mastering this first is very important so you can move on to the next phase. But it's in phase 3 where you're going to start losing, more weight, especially if you're on some kind of light, regular exercise program. So then phase 2, and I would say a month for each phase. But if you do this, you can find yourself losing excess water weight, and you can find yourself losing 10 pounds in a month of maybe about 6 pounds of water weight, and maybe 4 to 5 pounds of body fat, just by changing your diet up this way. Now phase 2, for when your body is feeling ready, don't ignore phase 2. You've got to move forward. So we're going to increase our diet up to 50% fats, 20% carbs. So we're going to keep it at 20% carbs, and 30% protein. So we can continue to have a slower, easier adjustment. And also this will help to avoid the severity of what they call the keto flu, which is just your body having a metabolic adjustment. And also we want to avoid losing water weight too fast. If you eliminate all carbs from your diet, you will find that you could lose water weight too fast. You want to lose excess water weight, but maybe not that fast. So phase 3, now we're going to start trying to get into extreme ketosis. Ketosis just means fat burning mode, 70% fats. So we're going to increase that by 20%. Once your body is feeling comfortable. We're not talking about mental. It doesn't matter whether you're mentally uncomfortable or not because you're having cravings. You're going to continue moving forward. Now, by the time you get into this phase, your cravings should also be lower. But here we're going to have 70% fats, 20% protein, 10% carbs. And you have to be very strict with that 10% carbs. Don't go over.